we ready?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So I am thrilled to be here joining you in your last session for the neuroscience.
Ane thari number 2 nyamdu tharin de ta khanda lobjeng gi thamasi gi yoba inare khanda wangza gi lobjeng di cha de gi yore da deli ya du sine ane nyamju chunga nyamju che gi kogup chuma di mora ane semzo chik kembu shira chwa trobu chung sons.
It is 9 a.m. in Atlanta, where I am. And what time is it in India?
Now it is 6:30.
So you will be with me until about 9 p.m.?
Yeah, until 10 p.m. We have each session 1.5
and a half
hour.
hour break.
Yes.
Yes.
And tea break in the middle.
Good. Okay. Well, it's morning here, so we're on different phases. And as you've been studying in circadian rhythms, you know that we're on slightly different phases.
Dan number 2 ani pigel shoge da del gonda cha di indu sambala ani number 2 ani tunjim khondre ko la jang yor was di indu sambala nganzu ani chicken dre manda waji kana de want to cha de yores.
But I wanted to introduce myself. I think I know some of the science teachers and the monastic scholars because for years I have taught this program and I've been at Sarah Monastery, and then I met quite a few folks in 2019 at the graduation ceremonies.
Ani dinalone ani number 2 siri genda gegen sinere da number 2 khashijik morangi ngonking gu yebe so dawch tus kharchine lana da moran lerim dig nalo ala da lupchi chene gyurumu dugu yes ani chida ani pege serala thanda di ni don chobye ni na tawa chik lupchi da tine ani indel ani lobdeng jego da tinde che chene ani morangi ngoshimba yebe so do mambush tus.
And I also prefer, if you have questions, you can interrupt. I want to model for you how you would run your neuroscience classes. And so my preference is if there are questions that we can take them as we go along.
Cheza da dilobi sambala lobze ma tibi kable ya ani number sola ani tiwa da uyo baina ani di tega morangi lobse tidu sambala tinsam tusini da di poruli ya tiwa tan ndigi yores china morangi lobse wanza lupti che dia te ani lobse khande thi gu yumegi number sola pesu dawjik ta pedun dawjik tinde gi cha thuagi ani tinde kala gomba shigi yes.
Okay, so are we ready?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So this is my introduction slide that I always use, and I use that even in my classes here at Emory. And I wanted to point out that these are all things that I'm passionate about, I'm interested in. So it tells you a little bit about me.
Da di morange ngodre cha de US di ani namju morang ngodre khawala cheba na di pheju dan de US ani phege labda emorilia ani morang ngodre chebi kabli ya duzu the de pheju dan ge US china duzu the de khari cha gi yore sidu sambala ani ching mora ani phege ing yusa da gana yusa o duzu gi ani den kha cha de gi yores.
I say that because I didn't put this slide in this picture in just because this is the Emory Tibet Science Initiative. This is always a part of my introductions because this is such an important part of the science education that I get to do.
Cheza that numbers of pige pari do sine dishanjo di ani mora ETSI ge lobzen tigi yubi jumzen samji gutone do sine ani di dination question jo ke mares digi lecha di chidan ke chembu jires ke chembu imdu ani morangi ani ngodre khawala chigi yuba ina ani pari du thedi ani morangi peju dangi yes.
So I studied neuroscience at Emory, and I am a fan of anything to do with brains. I like to go to the beach. I enjoy books, sometimes reading them, sometimes just collecting them. And then my children and my husband are Beckfords, that's our last name. So all these are things and people that I really enjoy.
Cheza ani da mora zo di kharil gana yu sidu sambala lebwe ko che tine deb loya da ani deb rigda mera chogdu che che tine ching chokha da ani Beckford da de morangi pu da nami yu sa du cha de gi resta khanda nami dan rewa che da tinde ani mora gana yu de sa de cha de gi yes.
And you'll see here, Abigail, who is now 9 years old, is already playing with a model of the human brain. And Lucas is reading about the five senses. He's now 12 years old.
아니 파쇼디 보무지도 디 아니 결혼주 넘버즈 시기도 와스 아니 피기 레베기 아니 과바징 냠도체 따디기도 베주단디기 와체 수쇼디 탄다 불 로중니 체와제 파쇼디 로구레 랍사 아니 수쇼디 탄다 양지 왕소던 레베기 왕제기 데 임파릴로 데와 딘데 차디기 요레스
I've also listed some of my favorite things to study in neuroscience, which is sleep.
아니 모랑기 왕자긴 세리 나노라 양지기 파 미스가네 아니 잉유에서 더우디 치 가르차기 요라바이나 니 골차디기 요스
Another thing that I am very interested in is neuroethics. And we don't spend a lot of time on neuroethics in the Emory Tibet Science Initiative, but others have tried to and continue to attempt to teach neuroethics in the Tibetan setting. And as we continue this week, I'll tell you a little bit more about that because there's at least one paper in that special issue that we recently published that focuses on teaching neuroethics in the Tibetan setting. And so I'll come back to some of that.
아니 드네 원세기 나노네 모랄이야 잉유드스 직데 가르차디기 요스도 잠발라 원자단 제베기 상주 세기여바이나레 수림 세기여바이나레 안디 차디기 요스 아니 원자단 제베 아니 수림 기 니주디 간조 탄다 ETSI 기 레자 나노라 아니 시비직 든데 기 롭세 티야 든데다 게 총요 마레스 임바이네 양스 아니 모라 가두이네 디 칸리아 두스치 카르세고레 라바도 페덴단 제베기 벽이 내단단 제빅토네 벽등 스코르다 티베탄 사이딩 시드 삼버다 칸다 벽단 제빅이 아니 원전 시리기 수준기 코르 아니 녀잘이야 지나 아니 착쇼지 tuyển 조레 디 콜디 아니 제르 넘버 수칙 세나 가서 디간 디단 제빅 콜레 용그레스
So what I also want to do is to maybe hear a little about you. So if I was in person, and this is always hard with remote classes, but just to find out who's in my class right now. So I have it on paper, but I want to know and I want to hear from the different groups if that's possible.
제자다 딜리드 삼발다 넘버 주 도시는 아주 진짜게 나눠라 아니 오늘 지 가르쳐 친구 자기 위해서도 삼발다 모란지 진짜게 나눠 럽두 수수 이메 루가 나눠 수수 이메 지 ngồi 율린 제조와 계시다 디투바이나 아니 모란디 양지기 개친문 로지기 위해서
So if we could hear from how many tables are in the room and how are they arranged, who's sitting at what table, are you by group? I just would like to hear about some of that from the group.
계산다 넘버 2 인도와라 루카 가지 예메다 아니 루카를 나나다 직 투미 칸데 예메 아니 넘버 2 루카 토네 아니 송난디 그레스 So I think we have 8 groups and in each group at least I think we have 6 or 7 students and total we have how many 48
Yes,
47
but at
months
yes, at each table, is it everybody from one monastery or is there a mixture?
Yeah, actually, it is a mixture of different monks from different group, and also we do have different instructors from different monastery, graduated science students, and in each group we do have one instructor, graduated student, so they can assist along the way.
Yes, very good. And will they be able to work together for the whole time? So the whole table will stay together for this whole week?
Yes. For the neuroscience, they stay together until we finish the the neuroscience course. So there are some sort of staying constant.
The same group, but
Yeah, same group.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so if I give a group work, then the whole table can work on it and they'll be in the same table tomorrow.
Yes.
Very good. Okay. So let's get into it. So I know you are familiar with the sustainability phase, and everyone who has already provided instruction, has given you their philosophy on how this course should look?
Ani da number zo sama khari juyo re sidu sambala ani jujong gi lerim di ani da juyo da ucha de gyo res an thanda bad number so ani lobsen khande thiyo bai na ani quran so gi lobsen de khande ji ime gi an number so ani du sin ngo dre gi thoni ching yo res.
So one of the things that I find most exciting about neuroscience is that we can use the science of learning to help us do a better job teaching.
Ta nganzo wanza tseri nalo la ani nganzo chigi ya mise gi ing le gwe ji khari yore sidu sambala ani nganzo gi ani anseri jan shawa du thedi ani chig pige lege gi ta chig shawa gi jugsu gi thone chawa di khombe khanle ta la ani khande chigu du se tinde gi thone ani yang ko mise gi tona yu de wa cha de yores.
So you already have a wonderful 6-year neuroscience curriculum, and I'd like to use the strength of that curriculum to build on in order to give you the tools to teach in the monasteries.
Chezanda deliri sambala number zola ani zo kharire sidi sambala ani lo true gi ETSI gi subjung di thapsa wares ani di gi subjung gi da chik pungshu senare nupa daw di khan la ya ani yanjo ani khanu gi sudu ani number so gi ani lupti khande chegu gu yeme dan jene ani do sine da ramde ma so na di shuya gi thap chashi daw di res so
I'd like to use that and pair it with the neuroscience core concept that are outlined in the essential principles of neuroscience that is produced by the Society for Neuroscience.
Cheza da dilari sambala di danyam do number soli zo de kari institute sambala an wanzan seri gi nano ge toksha inare kodo ningbu jorwa o dunzu te dile ya ani wanze gi jachi gi chubdin zo gi ani nindu gi sudo an do sine kojue che dia zo da chi wanze gi ani koran zo chizo jorwa da di nano ne ani da zo da ani ningbu kari imi dunzu te di kunzu gi do sine tangzi che shaba so roji cha de gi yorwas.
You may be familiar with the Brain Facts book. I know it's been translated into Tibetan, and I think it's available at most places, but the Society for Neuroscience produces this Brain Facts book, and they also came up with the neuroscience core concepts.
Cheza number so tanda the brain fact le di ani dep di number so jenu US ta dep di morang ge shezu cheba imba na di phuge na lo gyur chanjo cha de gi ores tin di sambala neuroscience society sidi sambala wanze ge chizo gi na no chizo gi chokwa di na no ne dep di ani padun cheba samma se ani wanze seri gi ani ko do nyimbo du zu the de ya khunzu gi da padun da ani de che de gi ores.
So your primers include the content of the ETSI curriculum, but also has some influence from the neuroscience core concepts.
Cheza dilari sambala ani number gi thanda nganzu ngundro gi wanze gi lobde jorwa da dige gi nalo ne ani tanda china ani ETSI khorang gi lobsen gi chiko jwa che dili ya thandu ani chi wanze gi ningdun se jdo tanda core concept le jdo digi ya pigel nizu ani chi khodru senare da kanda shukjin thep deba ji cha digi ores.
So these 8 principles that the Society for Neuroscience has identified as critical neuroscience learning concepts, these 8 principles I will use over the 3-year course.
Cheza dilari sambala da number so khari chagi yore sidi sambala tanda di 8 that critical principle that chik chubne so ga je do ji gi yosarwa o da dunzu the di ani kunzu gi ani khari chigi yore sidi sambala ani nganzo wangze gi ani chik shijung gi kodo dan genchen rawu ji gi tone ndu sin du gi yores da di nganzo ani so ga je dunzu the di ani nganzo losum gi loyun gi lobzen thia ge loyun cha de ge wara o ding na lo nganzo ndu sin ja cha de gi yes.
So you may remember from the very first year of Emory Tibet Science Initiative that we outlined some fundamentals. And so here are some questions that we asked in the very first year of ETSI.
제자 number 저 tuning 수기 되스 아니 간주 ETSI 게 로림 담비 그 롭제 나노라 아니 간주 다치 원제 게 시림기 아니 주도 좀 컨트리치요레스 and 디단 데비게 3 number 소 데리아 아니 간주 아니 직 시림기 지와 가시지요레스.
Do you think you could answer any of these questions?
number 2 ni gombala ani da thiwa dzugi ani number so gi ngone ani leng jab thu sare sam gu dues leng thep sare wes da thiwa dzugi.
Which of these questions do you think is the easiest question to answer?
Da number 2 ni gongzu cheba imba ina thiwa dzugi na lo ne leng jab le la sho ro di khar cha de gu sare es di na lo.
And I'd like to hear from the table. So each table should talk and decide which question is the easiest of these 4 to answer.
제자 디 렌디 니 number 2 ruka gu tone gugu yes di ndi sambala ni ruka ge na lo la number 2 kamena andine ani len piro chis. Yes, each table they do have yeah microphone.
Yes.
Yeah, so they can speak.
You don't have to give me the answer, just tell me which one is easy to answer.
Number so inji minji len di gugu yo mares len khari image se jora ine di nalo la len jab le la shu khari sar se di ni ngotha chen di gu yo re so
Are we ready? Some answers?
number so 30 US. Yeah, group khari imba number so group sik. Which group? Okay, pick it in the group. Yeah, chunzur ben thamadi. Okay, group number 6. We hear.
Ngaju chuba cha ina chwa tamba ding sares.
Chwa thambu di.
Onza cheri di kare se de.
Okay.
Then all kares na onza cheri di kare se.
So from their group, the first question one seems to be the easiest one.
Yes.
What is neuroscience?
Okay,
yes.
I'd like to hear all the groups and see if everybody thinks the same thing.
Yeah, group ruga samegi dosine sonro chida ani samegi chikbare dumde tagi yin songudo. Ruga so.
Natsu chawa tindi chawa thamadi.
Chawa thama.
Chawa goton chata ritamza.
Chawa thamadi. Okay. Group number 1 they think group number 2 I'm sorry. The last question seems to be the easiest one. How do we ask question in science? Questions.
Okay.
Ani ruka sure di je ruka yebar we. Okay, ruka yeba ni.
First and last.
First and last. Chik dam da.
Yes.
First one.
Yeah, first question.
Okay.
Ani yeah ruka
dimba.
genten shumbe danze shik do on this one.
Ruga dimba ki thiwa sumba jido dirish.
Thiwa sumba. Group number 7, the third question seems to be the easiest one.
Yes.
Third question.
Okay.
How do we experience the world? Okay.
Okay.
Amma, think emba chongsta se.
Manzo rakanga ki ani thama draw thama de dam yes.
And group number 5, they also choose question last question.
Yes. Okay.
Ngazo ruga sumba dege thiwa thangbo dameins.
Group number 3, they also choose the question, first question.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well,
one more group.
We're missing one. Yes.
Manzo ruga thama de.
Natsu tangbo dameins.
First group choose the last question.
Okay. So thank you. So we have many groups have said 1, many groups have said, what is neuroscience? How do we ask questions in science? As the easiest questions to answer. And then we had one group who said, how do we experience the world? No groups think that it is easy to answer, what do organisms need to know about the world?
제자 딜레드 삼발라 당 안주 피게기 나로네 아니 넘버 2기 손리 겐신적 나로네 망부지기 아니 지와 당부디 레라슈체 오먼전 시리카레시데디 테네 지기 아니 루카치기 아니 nganzuin jidin chida nyamsu yungure sede de chadegi yores imba ina number 2 naro네 수칸치 루카 아니 수칸치기 단다디 징위진 jidin 지고 지시하 고고 섬세 지와시도와 딜리아 아니 레라슈르생에 담게 딘데 체충마 송스.
Okay. The reason I did this exercise is I wanted to show you how what your basic assumption is could be different from someone else who is very similar to you.
That's all the number sort of standa any Chandi Shuguegi, any Jabjung needs to order with carrying lava in Baina, and in Aranso Chishizegi, Pigela, any Karisore, any Chigi assumptions to do some Balangan, Chesha, which is Soba, Rumba, Soba, Chejor, Chair di and Kuranda Michikba Jimbainaya, Digi Chair di any Misuzulia, Mandawa Yungu Devachik, or di any Tuyangachik Nenga Chadig US or Dins.
So when you start teaching any subject, you have these ideas about what you know and how it works, and that might not be the same for everyone who you are teaching.
Cheza di ledu sambala ani number so gilobdi chebikalo da pena chashina churan rawu chashina churangi ani yanchi nisu jeshin bada nisu di ani tiwaji pena land of shingwe di khande lega khande chigi mi shingu yo bada ani imba ina ya ani shemba dazugi thaga na shin churan da chigwa jijen shingu yo mares kanda churan lubdi cheza jorwa shedan de nisu di she dazu chigwa cha de yo mares.
So when I'm teaching in Atlanta at Emory, I have some ideas about what the students already know, what they've experienced. In fact, for many of my classes, I know which classes they have already taken in order to be ready for my class.
Cheza di ledu sambala pena chashina gena kona Atlanta na Emory lobzen TV kabli ya ani moran la lobtu manche ji lobzen kharilingi yume da kharishingi yume tanda badal lobzen khazuji koran joge ani lencha yume duzu tedi moran la junga yores ani di junga yudu sambala ani telepabege ching morangi lobzen khande thadi chigu yume dilia ani toben sogu yorwa di thadi chele di pendo yungu yores.
But when I'm teaching Tibetan monastics who live in India, there's a different set of ideas and concepts, and I can expect there to be differences in the way that you think about things.
Cheza di lebdi sambala pena chashana da number so del lu jaga gi da dungan judwa lebdi chebi kablia ani de chik samsu manda idea manda yu dewa ani chi kodori manda wa yu dewa tinde yu ba yindu sambala ani number so nano ne yan chi gi nizu ani phazo ani shya gi ani khenja na masuna dia ani kharishingi yu me dia ani manda wa cha de yu dewa di ingires.
The other reason I chose these questions that we use in year 1 of ETSI is because I think it shows a really good example of how very difficult all these questions are.
Ya ani jumzen shemba chik number so thanda di ani thiwa di thanda ETSI ge lorim thambi ge lobzen de thiwa di tang go ge jumzen chi khari yin la wa yin ba ina an number so ani khari chi nge thu re su di sambala ani thiwa du zu the de ani kale khalo kha zu zren du se jorwa o di ya number so yan chi ge thubren so ya da ani nge ge che du yins.
I think if we asked 10 neuroscientists that first question, what is neuroscience? I think we could get maybe 10 different answers.
That bena chashin the thiwa thangbu dis gela khurang gi wanzan seri ba julia thiwa thagara kwe ba yin ba ina ani nge sambala pheji ani thiwa dig le mandawa chuzi ji ragre samgudus.
So what we usually do is agree on a definition. So as long as we're all talking about the same thing, we agree on a definition, even if when asked to produce the answer, we might have different answers. We all choose to agree on one definition.
Cheza dilabdi sambala da number so nganzu ma dus ani chigi sinyi ne ma so na kodön ne ma so na ma te yindi sambala ani nganzu lega thumu gi ngile yu shin jo chi kala che yindi sambala ani nganzu chigi kharse goron thumu gi ani deshi chi ngile chigi yo ba che an dele ya ani sinyi man thu da chigi le manda li gi yo ba ina ya an dele ya nganzu chigi sinyi ma so na ngo kodön ne ma so na di an thumu di yo ba chi cha de gi yo res.
So as you're teaching your students, you can agree on a definition for any of the concepts that you are discussing. Just make sure this is something that is known, this is in a textbook, and we can all agree on a particular definition.
Cheza dile sambala da gegen shi imba ina da wansan labse ma thigi yoba ina rwa ta di pension dan rewina ane churang ke koto khande je tosha khande ji ma ngodu chigi yoba ina da dil ya chigin sinyi ni ma sona ane di lobde na no yoba ina re khari na no yoba ina re ane di gi da sinyi khoden di re se yagin thumu gu thone ngene che ji ane yogu gu yores.
The last question also gives you an opportunity to think about a set of skills or a process.
아니 다 제마치 가르쳐 되고 디제디 가르쳐 되고 그래서도 삼발라 안 넘버 소르 페나 차샤나 아니 치기 체림치기 아니 set of process the idea dindeji khanle 아니 넘버 소 아니 곰바 셰기 요바 임바이나스.
So as we think about how do we ask questions in science, it can be a list that we can always refer to, and it can be a guideline or a rubric of how we ask questions in science.
제가 딜레드 삼발라 다 딩나노라 넘버 소 페나 차샤나 아니 간존 세리리아 트와 칸데 땅고 그레 세기 아니 지 가르쳐 고레 람드윙 그 소도부지 아니 페게 아니 드롬시 소도부지 여바체 아니 디기 간졸이야 아니 세리 토네 트와 칸데 땅고 그레 세기 페게 아니 가이드라인 세두 삼발라 간조 치 미페 페타사 도부지 람드윙 셰사 도조르와 오디 시 소도부지 차디기 요레스.
So as you're asking your students to learn things, the first question, you can all agree on a definition and memorize it. And the last question, you can agree on the steps and they can refer back to it, look it up all the time, so you can have a standard set of guidelines for that last question.
제가 델레드 삼발라 다 가르치기 요레스도 삼발라 당불은 넘버도 참매기 아니 투모그 민두에 션요기 신이 임바이나레 다 도차 임바이나 고도지기 신이 임바레 아 고도지기 요바체 디 젤이야 아니 지기 디 고도디 아니 레제 잡나기 림바드 마소나 레제 다 스텝 바이 스텝 라고 orda 컴토도 마소나 디 요바체 디기 아니 제말라 아니 간조 다 롭투 궁원에 아니 피게라 치와 땅루 땅다 칸데 땅고 두세기 아니 미베 따서 더차 두고 요와 어디 고고 요레스 칸다 치wan 타마기 딜라.
The middle two questions, what do organisms need to know about the world and how do we experience the world, are very big questions in neuroscience.
제가 다 디날 치완니 도와서 넘버 조 페나 차시네 징위진 지den지 고치 하코그레 세디에 대당 안수인 지den 지단 용거레 세디에 니니디 완전 세리기 나노라 다 치완 항상기 치 찹신부는 뭐 딘데 차디기 요레스티와.
And when you are teaching, your students will have very different ideas and you will communicate very different things, and you may never cover the complete extent of all these questions.
제가 딜레드 잠발라 다 넘버 쪽에 있는 룹트리마 팀디 잠발라 룹트 ngone 딜리야치 고알린즈 만다와 시비주 예데바체 아니 딜리야 아니 안데식 잡단 지금 넘버 가선 대화 안데식 잡단 만다와 망부 시비 윤디 잠발라 아니 결혼 쪽에 룹진 티비 갑래야 안 디기 줍차는 마소나 아니 디게 차산직 넘버 쪽 두시네 아니 룹트기 나노라 아니 줍투 마레스.
So you can usually select just a few things that you think are very important for you to communicate and provide them with a set of skills to be able to ask these questions for themselves.
제가 딜레드 잠발라 다 차산디 두시네 닝안주 룹생마 아니 안조토야 미두 잠발라 디 나노네 차시직 아니 결혼기 다지 개체를 따네 아니 디수 아니 딜리야 아니 양직 지당기 림반로직 아니 군주기 고안랜당도 펜도 유신요게 단지 가이드라인도 없이 랍송 어디 손도지 텐데기 토네 아니 ngồi 제고야 돼 개천 부착이 요레스.
So I wanted to show you these so you can start thinking about what you want to teach in neuroscience, and if you want people to memorize things or learn a set of guidelines or be able to ask questions and find the answers to those questions.
제가 다 딜레드 잠발라 넘버를 가르치여인 라바인바이나 아니 결혼기 아니 룹툴이야 페나 차시나 티와 아니 룹티걸 당부디 티와 디기 아니 치기 고도디긴 신이더지 론지 제주야 임베스 Yamena ani Chivadigi and the Lane Ratangi, Rimbadamasun and Drejigi Tone, and it's Lamdungi Tsugdu, Tanjin Jabson, Udina Shinkitone do share in base. Yamena and the Chivad in the Kashi Tega Kuichene and Dusine Tega Dusine Lanja the Chigi in base.
So I have selected for us, for this 3-year course, I have selected specific topics, but I am open to hearing from you about what you would need more of and what you want to focus on.
Ta morang ngone ani number 2 losum gi ani wanze gi leja dig na lo la ani chu misi chik demdu cheshen ju yeda yes yimba ine ya an number 2 gi ani gongchu dig anji suzu gi ani khare shendu yoba da tende gi ani gongchu somba ina an dian gi yes number 2 ngone.
So these are the Society for Neuroscience core concepts that I mentioned. There are 8. On the first slide, I'll have 4, just so you can see them. On the second slide will be the other 4, but we'll start with these first 4.
Cheza da diledi sambala da ani Society for Neuroscience di ani wanze gi da chik chizo se so do jira ngo dige gi nano la ani kodo gi nimbo se de gi tanji ani kodo gi rimba ge ina jore se de dig tarin dig nano la number 2 do sine ma shu gi yus tande dig nano la kodo gi rimba de shi yu ani di jema gi di nano la kodo rimba shi do sine yus tokshar nimbo se.
So these principles, the neuroscientists have gathered together and decided that these 8 principles are the most important things. If someone is studying neuroscience, they should understand these 8 things.
Chezan da digi ani tongshar ge senare kodo nimbu je du chede ani wangzan seri bad khoran zu chu ani nyam dun du ne ani wangzan seri jange ji le ya da chi gongge ge chajen so do jik ani da dige de cha de yo resta ngeba de shingu ya ge ne den so do ji la.
So this year we will be looking at specifically principle 2, 4, and 7.
Ani lo dig nano la tharing da talo dig nano la ani nganzu gi ani cho ani chubden choha senare zanjin senare dige gi nano ne ta de khari cha de gi yore le di sambala ani thanda chubden zanjin niwa de da shiwa tene ani dumba de cha de gi yes.
And the reason I've selected these 3 is because this year I want us to be focused on learning about learning.
Cheza ani dunzu chedi ani thering miss su ani demdu che go ge jumzen khari la na thalo nganzu ani chigi shijung che de khande jang gu yume se de di khan le ya chu ani mi ba te ya do di cha de ge us mix su jingsa di cha de ge us.
So I can't argue with any of these. I think it is true that the brain is the body's most complex organ. That's a fact that has not been disputed by any other scientist.
Da pena chashna ne den thangbu ding na lo ne ani leba ne lu gi ombu gi na lo ne nyonji cheshu re se de dilia ani morangi thagara mindu chi gi us ani dilia chi gi ngule ma je che dilia choba le ding etinde ani thanda badu ani wonje seri na lo sugan yo ma res dingu gi ne den cha de gi de ne cha de yo res.
Neurons, which we know are the cells of the nervous system, communicate using both electrical and chemical signals, and we've been reinforcing that throughout our curriculum.
Cheza da dile di sambala ani tene ani wanza chazu ani nyig na lo la da penzu ani phazu dande chi du sambala lo da ani zeg da kan ni ga pheje dangre se de cha de gyores di ani yang anzu ani thanda lo yung gi ta lo sum ji do dige na la yang jo ani kya du yang jo yong de cha de gyores ta kan da ne den si de sa chik.
I think this is a really important basic principle to help us remember how our brains will be communicating within itself and how we communicate with each other.
Cheza da di morangi ngarangi samju chewana di nenga chembu shibiji cha de dus di khari chen re de sambala di nganzo khari chen chugure khari shen chugure la ba yimba ina ani wanza chazu gi ani subu nano gi chashi shemba da nyamdo ani danje khande chigi yores chikche tine wanza chenzu penzu chigi chigli ya ani danje khande chigi yores de gi ne den dini cha de gi yores.
The third item, genetically determined circuits are the foundation of the nervous system, is also true. And we will come back to that. But this year, I don't know that that genetic determination has much to help us in the way that we are trying to learn about learning. So we'll come back to that. But this year, we don't need to focus on that.
Chezan da dile di sambala ani rizi gi tembe shebe lolam minare dalam minare thani tembe lolam chidu sams o di ani wanza mala ge shiden yin se de jora shiden yin se de di ani da ngoy ji cha de gi yorte yimba yin ya ani tharing anju lobsen gi nanola di ne den de len de shira cha gu mare kharche ne laba yimba na di gi ani anju chi jang gi shejung gi nanola ani shejung khande chi gu re se gi thalam da misi gi dewa shira cha gu mares yimba yin ya
This one, I think, is very important for what we're doing this year. Life experiences change the nervous system.
Ta mige mize nyume gi onze malalan juwatang thugren juwatang gre se jorwa da di ani the ke chimbu jindang ju dan rewa chimbu yin sha de gi yores.
I think this is very important because as we think about how we are learning, we are changing our nervous system. And so this is a life experience that is changing your nervous system. That means you are having meaningful learning. Something is happening to change your nervous system from the way it was to the way it will be because of new information.
Da di ani number so ani nenga chimbu cha de gi yores kharchin dan da nganju chi gi ni ju ji jambi kab la asirwa. Ani chik jawa da nyamdo ani nganzo nyuwa mambu shiwi chik nano ala ani ta nganzo ta khari ji jangari khari shem da khari jang yo bate da khandes jangari se di maung parul khandes se di zo parul ya ani juwa do degi yor wasta khanda wanze kona ko ba to ni lagi yo inare o din indu sambala dia ani nganzo nenga chembu cha degi yores.
So this an example would be as you learn how to do something new, you don't have to think so hard about it anymore. The more you've learned it, it becomes easier, right? Because your life experience will change your nervous system to allow you to be an expert, which is going to look different from when you just heard about it.
Cheza dile du sambala pena chashna number zu ne ne sabaji jamba inas ani tinde ge jane ani nyuwa de ma sagi sagi du sambala ani jandu sambala ani thangbu jamba na shinji kale khabu shibi ji meba chandu gu yores kare sidu sambala chorang ge jamba na shinji tege nyume thone ani phige la lebe ge thone yang ko chi kare se goren juwan da ji komdin da ji ge thone ani ten thangbu jamba na shinji ma imba che ani yang ji she de she le la uda khanda ani shele la buse gore khanda ani di parul yan juwa shuk chimbu sine tinde ani kale khamu mayenge komdi gi sondo da khanda dinde gi tuni juwa ndo shag yores.
I'm going to skip through the others. They are available and you will be able to review them and we will get back to them. But the last or the third principle that we'll be using this year is the human brain endows us with a natural curiosity to understand how the world works.
The dimembe ge number zu tenseri mambu shivji do da zu tede tanda do sine ani chomni dugi ine jelle yungures ta ine ya da nenga chi kharcha de gi yore sidu sambala draw mi lebe nganzo lan zamling gi lezu chi da imbar shendu gi lengi gi tona jing gi us de cha de gi yore sta kanda nganzo zamling gi ta chi gi jining gi lega chi dan de zo khande khande ina se gi ani lengi gi tone pige lan dumbal le de stowa le de chi da dileba yo ba thaga rang dig cha de gi yore se so lo bijda.
And we've used this principle in the way we've structured the Emory Tibet Science Initiative because you have a research component. So in the winter session, you heard from Robin and Nicole, they're teaching about how to do research. This is all based on the idea that our natural curiosity helps us to understand how the world works.
Cheza da ani digi ani zanzi de yogo de zoji karicha de yores le de zambala an number zo tanda nganzu ETSI ge lerim ni nanola ani nyamshi ge semba jiyo deres ani gungalia tanda ani Nicole da ani Robin Koran so ge ani nyamshi dan de ge lobzen den chiri chigi yores te le de zambala ani nganzu pige chigi lengi gi pige ani kharse gore anjiding da jing zamling gi chawa chena khande khande rese de gi ani troba jorwa da dil zo shi jene ani da jigi nyamshi gi dumba da masuna da dile de cha de gi res.
So those are the principles that I think will help us to think about learning about learning.
Chezanda dazu chedigi ani so chanzi dawud khar chadigi yore sidi sambala ani chinganzu chik jang watheli ya ani khandis jang gure se samnung khochu ye jorwa oda da dinzu dande wa chadigi yore sta khanda digi chanzi tanda shi dawji ni sumji do so amora.
Very good. Okay, so what questions do we have so far?
Number so dinalon chik khama sewa dawuda tindegi chik mise gi thiwa daw ke yuwe songu de thiwa yuwe. No question, no question.
Is this all review?
Number so di chik khare cha jung so dawji cha suesta. No question, I think. It seems no question.
Okay, very quiet. Are you just tired? How did you give all your presentations in biology yesterday?
Ani number so kaza ani kingwe gi lobzeng gi tamshi di che ani number so sama kudan che de dinde marwa sthang chenjo dinde.
Okay. So, how do cells receive and transfer information?
Tanganzu penacha shana ani chignizu chu lembada ani pha ani gyudong che de zo khande khande chigu yore se de cha de gi yore en thapung de zo gi nizu chu lembada pha ani gyudong che de zo.
Can anyone remind me what we mean about cellular communication? What does that mean to communicate within a cell? What is electricity in the nervous system? I need to hear from these tables. What I want to understand now is what your background information looks like. So the tables can take a little while to think about and then offer me an explanation of how cells receive and transfer information.
Chezanda number zula ani thiwaji khari yue laba yimbaina number zungwe ne ani cellular communication thabungi dadu se joro ani di sidi sambala khari lagi yores di number so ruka ngone lengu yus di so di number ke ni jebjung ni ju khande ndu morangi di choda che so ndo jorwa julen che jorwa di che re do di ndi sambala an di nano le log dalen da ani chik thabungi thabung ya ani chik dadu ani dande chik re se da zo thedi khari cha de gi yor an number so ke ani produce che ani mol lengu yus.
Just a couple minutes at the table and then you'll tell me about how cells receive and transfer information in the nervous system.
Cheza dilele sambala kama ni sumji number so trudu che ane wanze gi mala ge nalo la ane thapung den zo thede da chu lemba da gyudong che dan di khande re so da di ni ne chu de gu yes ta khanda.
Are we ready to share?
Number 2 nyamju che la thadi yue song ruka. Yes.
Yes.
Group number which one? Group number
Anyone?
6. Okay, from group number 8.
ngazoruka ngone ya danda de thapong da trillion sia de vision inserting do danda
Once a mala than any shame goal.
danda onsa no ge ani loda de zida zo de shi ge sres thapong ge da trillion sia de zo tombo ani loda gyu ji ani onsa parala ya zida lo ni man re jero de lo ge and onsa mala no ge ni lo la de Asian potential la danda linju na pala jo but de lo ge na yana ani onsa no ge ya danda di loda la gu ya de lo ge de ni se uji chamasu.
So from their group, cellular communication, it refers to specifically electrical and chemical signals, the transference, the receiving the signals of the electrical and chemical signals, and also transferring that. And then then the electricity in the nervous system, maybe it refers to more sort of action potential.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Very good. Very good. Let's hear from another table.
Yeah, Ruka Dumba.
디 ngazo 도도 레셔글라 디 ngazo 온자 남편친디 파조 다티에디 아니 제다기 기는 다티에다 아니 아체 ngazo 온자네 파게 다다 다게 차템보도 다티에디 아니 lokda 기는 또 스케디 어디니 도치레셔.
So from their group, group number 7, when neurons communicate one to another, the signal of that will be more of chemical signal. But when one neuron carries the information through the from the axon to the dendrite, then that signal actually carries in the form of electrical signal.
Okay. So if I'm hearing correctly, where is the electricity? Is it within the neuron or between the neurons?
Cheza dilabdi chambala ani lo di khawale yores lo tanda nga jorwa dilabdi chambala lo di ani wanze gi nano lo yore yamena wanze gi phale yore wanze ni gi phale yore khawale yores
온자에 나로라 디 안다디 ngazo
Axon
어디
daji chatting.
림부죠 어디나나.
Yes, they said the electricity is actually within the axon of the nerve.
Yes. And then the chemicals are between.
Between two neurons, yes.
Yes. So this would be an easier way to show that same information that you just shared.
Then number 2 charan ju song de du the de ani pa tab de wuji gi thone ani chimbu shiwa ina an di cha de gi yores.
So sometimes it's easier to share an image that is labeled than to try to describe in words what you're communicating.
Cheza diladu sambala kam gol khari yores di sambala kising anju pari che pari ding nano ala ani khora thanye khari gu ne di pheje ta che dinre che ne pha ani chimbu shiwa nyamju che ba yin ba ina ani chi gi ngoto gu thon en reshe gya ba le ani digi ani khwa ra le la yor tab de yores.
So sometimes when you ask a question, there's a very simple answer that might be a picture, which would be difficult to say. But if you have the ability to show images, then that will help you to communicate your ideas better.
Cheza diladu sambalan sam da ngazu chi thiwa da wuji che thiwa le la wuji che dia an chi khar se gore ani kharan so gi en le gya le ani yan chi par gi thone pha an thinde gi thone ani chi gi tyen gi niba da wuji ba yin ba ina an du zu the yan chi gi le la bu ne khoto le la le jorwa on thinde yores.
And sometimes asking your oh wait, let's go back to this. Why did that change? Hold on. Sorry, I think this came out of presentation mode. Okay, there we go. Let's get it. Sometimes asking your students to answer a question, it might be easier if they draw it. So if you are able to ask your students questions, sometimes asking them to draw the answer or to find an image might be the more effective way to get them to demonstrate their knowledge.
Chezan dilere zambala ane kamga number 2 gi labdu solia thiwa tandu zambala pena chashana and di rimuna no TCS ndo yamana pari gi tuni tuen laba yimba ina ani pige gi lobtu lo khran thap guya gi shin di thabali ya ani thanda dinde gi thone ani chig pige le pendo che ada ani nuba che ada yungures.
So here I'm skipping through. See all these images we'll come back to. I just want to hear. So I am a big proponent of active learning.
Okay. Big and mora ani khari institute sambala nyamdu gi shijong gu tholiya that the khari sogore ndumba chimbu yunge ya supportive ndumba chimbu yunge opponent mang proponent ing dinge dilia and ndumba chimbu da gyabjo shuk chimbu che dinge di cha de US.
So I believe in active learning because when I was younger, I heard this. They said, what I hear, I forget. What I see, I remember. What I do, I know.
Cheza that delivery sambala number to pen charge and morang didishti doa. And nge khan kobadi nge je du se chikche nge khan thongadi any nge tingudu nge khan chebadi nge shegin du se jorwa. That tunda zo the nyamdu gwe ke chinju chimbuima nyen zo maimba.
Have you ever heard something like this?
And number so dinde misegi dido dinde konyu yue sungdo. No.
Do you see any truth in it? So if I tell you something, but I don't show you, you're more likely to forget it.
Chezan pena charge number so ani chigi nizu drawu chigi ani ma share the share bache share in sambala ani thidan devi gi nizu gi jabjung pa drawu tinde ke matum ba tinde gi nedun da thu yundu sambala ya duzu thede chig je doya drawu je le la drawu yuma dine mise ke yungu dues.
But if I give you something to do, if you have to actively do something, it reinforces the idea in a way that helps you to keep it.
Chezan dile de sambala ane number so digi jong did the jong khar kodo didan jebe ge ane chik pige lagdar dan jeni pige chegoji dan pa nyamshu cheje di cheju ba yimba ina and digi ane kura nedun du chede ane chik jun rimbu nyaya la ta khanda tembe nalo nyaya lagi orwa o dunzuli ane shamde chigi ores.
Who here can ride a bicycle?
Number so nanola ani kango da bagwa shunting it in the suyus. Yes, many of I think.
Many? Okay. So if you were to describe to somebody, just to describe to them how to ride a bicycle, do you think they'd be able to do it if you just said the words?
Cheza that number so kango ani chigi mishembali ya khande shuyungu race lovely do che imba ina churan sig ngoto rang to ne deshi gyapche di cheba ina churan ki di lovely chetu gre samgu dues ha koi sotu gre samgu dues.
Yes, how many people do you think would be able to learn to ride a bicycle if you just described what riding a bicycle should look like?
Cheza that number so ngone ni chigi kango duzu te di pan deshi ki to ne du sine ani shintu gre sa jorwa di khande yungu re se di jorwa and dilia ani and two re samge number so khazu US.
No answers?
Yeah, le. Children reshik tan tusare lagi. Yeah, one said yes. One of the students raised his hand, and
Yes.
saying that just giving the explanation and verbal explanation how to write. Then he said maybe he can be able to make the student to be able to ride the bike.
But it might not work for everybody. So it might not be very efficient if you just describe it. How about if you show a video? So if you show a video of someone riding a bicycle, do you think everybody would learn based on just watching the video?
제자 딜레드 삼발라 디 참말 찍고 자금 말와스 다 참매기 애니 찍기 샤든 다 찍기 갈 찍기 기지 찍기 신기요 바네 디 참말 답되고 자기요 말레스 다 간다 페나 차잖아 아니 찍기 광고 쉬운데 위기 년동 잡지 된지 아니 광고 쉬운데 장주 바이나 아니 참매기 다가라 디기톤에 장토그레 삼구도 왜스 넘버서
삼미두스.
Yeah, some cool, some can maybe learn just watching the videos of someone in riding the bicycle, but
Yes.
That will be not the same case to everyone.
Right. But if you give them a bicycle and say, try to ride it, they will most likely be able to figure it out because they're doing it.
제자 딜레디 삼발라다 디 다가나 차되기 요레스 계속 군소로 광고지 제샤바 임바이나 아니 코란소기 지기 피겔 피게 드룹 차왈파 슈체네 찍체인디 삼발라 랭 코란소 라두레스 컨디션 구게 메페제.
So this is what we mean when we say life experiences change the nervous system, is when you do something, when you have the experience, then you can learn more about it. It will stay with you if you are doing it.
제자 딜레디 삼발라다 디 아니 랍데기 요레스 간조기 뇽메기 토네 원잔 아니 칸데 주와당 그레세디 디단데니 차데기 요레스 아니 쿄랑기 두스 피겔 아니 뇽메기 토네 시디 삼발라 피겔 냠슈치 드룹 인디 삼발라 아니 디기 에네 간조 체기 피겔 자야 셴 두즈테디 템부소야다 딘데 용구 요레스 타칸다.
So some of the things we will cover with neuroscience is how that works in the nervous system. How does it change your nervous system by doing something? What are the functions? What are the mechanisms that allow you to learn something by doing it?
제자 다 아니 간조기 원제기 엔롭센 디기 나노라 아니 셈바카지 탄다 간조 피겔 아니 지기 냠슈 제제 피겔 아니 슈네 레가지 두바 디기 아니 원자긴 주와타다 아니 칸데스 원제 주와 칸데 땅기 요레세 야소도다 아니 디기 아니 피게 가르스고레 원제 네버긴 주와 용당 조르와 오다 드주단 제베토네 야 차시치 간조 디 피게 슈네 아니 간조 칸데 싱그레 칸데 장기 요레세 조르와 오디단 제베야 네수직 간조 용구 요레스.
So we should be able to see how seeing and acting can change the brain in such a way that we are able to learn.
제자 딜럽디 삼발라 페나차시나 ngaranzo 피게라 차와데 드루바다 아니 피게 미긴 통한다 디기 아니 nganzo기 아니 레바기 나노라 아니 주와스테 주와 디기 아니 nganzo 양치 미세 시종리야 아니 람데 체디야 오딘데기 안니데 차디기 요레스.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit about why your students will be learning science.
단 나바솔 다디 에 투바지 가리요 시리 삼발라 아니 교랑기 롭도 두주 테디기 아니 가르치는 세리 원자 세리 장기연 세리 장기요레 세 차데기요레스.
So something we think about quite a lot in education is the intellectual mission. And what I mean by that is, what does the student expect to get out of being there?
제자 딜레디 삼발라 다 딜이야 아니치기 가르세 오롱wen다 존두지 모랑기 ngarangi la야 체바 이나 intellectual missions 라고 유스타 로드기 푼두세기 요바 엔데 가르이나 다 조디 가르레스 디 삼발라 안 롭센 디기 나노네 아니 롭투기 아니 피겔 치그라야기 자양기 레와나마손다 디 가르레세 직차디기 요레스.
And I can tell the difference in my classes at Emory when I teach a required class that everyone has to take for the major, compared to when I teach a class that we call an elective, something they can choose.
아니 다 페나 차샤나 겐라 코랑기 만다와 가르 통두두 시두 삼발라 페나 차샤나 아니 롭두 카시직 아니 롭젠직 나노라 첼레 치두 삼발라 코란솔 아니 녜바도 아니 피겔 롭젠 레 고야직 롭젠 조르와 대다 아니 양 코란소기 롭젠 레나 말레나 조 수수긴 데미기 토는 조야기 담카지네 조야기 롭젠 조르와 디니니 파루기 아니 코랑기 만다와나 마손데 디 통두두스.
So when I'm teaching a class that's required, a lot of students are there just because they have to take the class, and they don't necessarily want to take the class, but they cannot graduate without it. And so many students just show up to try to make sure they meet the requirement.
Cheza dilati sambala ani genla korangi lobsen TV kabla ya thanda lobsen di ngeba do pige ani len goya gi lobsen gi nalon la nyamshu chingi da lobdu jora dunzu thedi ani korangi pige la ngeba do ta pige chele lobsen di chele longdu di sambala lobsen di len gu yu di sambala kunzu de yonya te ani chig susu gi dumba da trowa yuni thoni yonshen jo mayimba pige la chajing ji gi thone ngeba do yong gunge cha yun di sambala an di ene cha de gi res.
But when I teach my special topics classes or the electives, so for me, I teach sleep or I teach neuroethics, and students can choose which class they want to be in. There's a lot more energy. They usually are more excited. They want to learn about the topic because they chose to be in that class.
Cheza da dilati sambala antene morangi chigi lobzen damga yushin jote dindre gi lobzen ani pena chachana moranzo ni gan rendwa teda ani chigi wanze gi sutrim dandre be thone redwa dindre gi lobzen ti yundi sambala din nalo nyamshu chingi gi lobdu duzu chedi ani koranzo ndemi rangi thone le yundi sambala ani koranzo lo pige lobzen jandu gi chigi nuba yimba inare tona yimba inare ani koranzo suzu gi ndemi gi damga gi thone le yundi sambala an dindre shukchewa yonde dindre chadi gi dus.
So as I understand it, the monastic curriculum now includes science, which means anyone who wants to pass their Geshe exams will need to learn science.
Da morangi da shela tandanganzu ani chigi dwala ani wanza kin karso sendi gi lobzendi ani zuwache ani lagbado ani gishi gi pige ani da gilu jude sondo tendele lendi yungen zu thede yang ngebado tanda di wanza sendi gi lobzendi rogo ya dende chade gi yo lengo ya dende chade gi yo was.
But within the science disciplines, not everyone is going to be excited about all the topics.
Ta anin sendi gi pige ani dinzu gi chapgung na no la ani chi sendi chazan chi kalor ji topic jushi chazan ji du sin ani jang go gi tende ne dun ke chagi yo mares.
So my question is for you all, without even thinking about your students, of all the science disciplines that you're required to learn, which one are you most excited about learning?
Cheza da number soli ya din sambala thewa khari yo sidi sambala da choran zo gi da jig lobtu gi da zo di morangi chunzu lob sentinge ji kan samdan shi gi do lobtu du zo te samung ta mo go wache ani choran la da jig pege chajen cha gunge gi yan jig lobten chi go jor was da khanda dige gi nalo ne susu jig tona shukche ju lesa jor wa da kan dumba shukche ju lesa jor wa da du zo te khar khar cha digi yes.
And it won't hurt my feelings. I really do want to know, but it won't hurt my feelings if your favorite is physics. One of my favorite translators, when I used to go to Sarah, would translate for neuroscience, but I knew he just loved physics. That was what he wanted to study, but he would translate for neuroscience. So it won't hurt my feelings if neuroscience isn't your favorite, but which science is most exciting to you? And I do just a few examples. If someone wants to take the mic and say, I really like this science because, tell me what is exciting about the scientific discipline that you're interested in.
Cheza delebi sambala da genla koran la pena ani ngema ani pige sera la pebe kablia ani sungju ki jujus ani ki judi ani korangi ingzo yesadi ani ngogam sindi rede shas ta morangi juriadi wanza judi gi yorwas ta dina shinji gi ani number zo nalo ne ani chicken siri gi ta chagung nalo ne ing yosa zo kharin badi ani kharichini imba odi any number zo ngone pension ta chig to ne pension sub pension so do cheche in dinechini songro chis.
And did I say favorite? I think I'm not supposed to have favorites. Teachers don't have favorites, never mind. But someone I know likes physics more than neuroscience.
China genla koran la ani khala war da chigi gegen shimbe chane ani yanchi lobsen yakshu din se atinde ani shira yo mares china yo chogu yo mares ine ani tat khashir da chigi yores lobdu nano la yores ta din sambal chu number chu nano di songro chila da.
So tell me which ones you like and why.
Ani number zo ani kharila ani chigi gami cheshu yo bata ani yo go bi ki jumzen khari imba di ani number zo songro chis. Group number 1 group number 1
the ones that say
ah
Iri nani da diri kasa wangza tiwi mala. Da wangza tiwi mala di da ingchi shuda jin. Gyumsen kain sina wangza tiwi mala di da ngasu nangshu ni shebi da semjung desu.
Alegwa, tewi mala nalo karsa.
Wangza tiwi mala. Da di imbi gyumsen de gadi sina ngasu nangshu nanglo la da semjung den de yorba.
Semjung.
Semjung ki namsha di da ani pasu trene ngasu da deshi gyaba ina. It is doa ngasu kuinde khagi lobtru desu ina. It is English or some sort.
Me kira English di jumzen dirwa. Okay. So yes, for him, the central nervous system is the most most interesting subject. The reason why is because in Buddhism we talk about many different types of mental factors and the mental topology, and I can draw so many a comparison and similarity between these two sets of field. That's the reason.
Yes, very good. That's why I like neuroscience too, because it's very practical. I can feel it. I can see it in action. I can almost see the things happening in the real world.
Cheza da di moraya chik lobse wanzala ingle go jumsen so kha chik din is khare sidu sambala di chik khayo ngoyo ge lagdal pha yue din jo chik ani digi ani chik gi zamling nano la khande chungu yeme ngus pha chik khar so nywe thone rik thoya so do da khanda tinde cha du samba moraya diga ingle go ge jumsen chik din is.
But that's also true for physics. For instance, I know when I see a rainbow, I understand that light is being moved in a particular way, and so understanding the physical principles also, you can see it in action. So that's true for physics, but I still have a special place for neuroscience.
Da di ne dun di ngui ani an chik ngugam siri nalo la tagar cha di gyo res pena nga zu jing janzuen rabu jing leba yin ba inan janzuen gi pigi lo gi ani Quran zo karse gora khasho lo lab da zo kujak manda wa jitone di yundi tsambala ani chik ngui gi nedan da zo khande chini yungu yume ani pigi chik lezu jik chawa jik tone ri thuya di ani ngugam nalo la tagar di demba cha di gyo res ina ya mora da zo di wanza nalo di gana lesa di cha di gyo res.
Let's hear from someone else what scientific discipline they like and why.
Number two, any chig one say gi pege dinzu chapgun rimang bu jor wa dige nano ne susu ge ing yesa di khari imba khari chini imba se odi anjo ani semba khaje jig son ro chis chig ni jig. Group number 7.
Tanda kongmo gi diwa di len shu chwa che. Tanda gen gi tanda nye gi tanda chashwe di wangza tsingri gi lo. Kaya ser na tanda wangza tsingri ki nanglo la wangbo gi mala dinsu she go ro. Wangbo nga gi jile che dang che ro. Wangbo nga gi jile che dang di ani ngarang so nangbe shung nanglo la ani wangbo nga jile che dang gi kor di ani mangbo chi she gi yo res ro. 이 코란스 시와다 간조 시와 지당도 됐스 미자와 레데 이나양 대화 숙제 무두스
Okay.
대화 숙제 무두스 이 상황에서 지리 장이라는 거는 가우 숙제 무였어.
For him, his favorite subject is also neuroscience, because in neuroscience we can learn so much about the five senses, sensory faculty. And similar to that, in Buddhism, we also talk about the sensory perceptions and five sensory perceptions. And although there are a little bit, differences, but we can draw so many, connection between these two. And because of that, he has a strong interest of that subject.
Very good, very good. Same for me, except for the Buddhism part. I don't know that much, but yes. Okay, let's hear from.
Okay, one more maybe from the group number 5.
Yes, please.
Shiva, Shiva group 4, Shiva.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I have one question and one opinion.
Yes.
So I think I like the neuroscience, because what I think is in our Buddhism, there's a Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist science. So from the science, the neuroscience is the most close to the any Buddhist science. I mean, the Buddhist science means the science of the mind.
Yes.
And my question is, so as you told before, if so right now many are not interested in the neuroscience, and can be. And then what do you think the best method to make them, happy and interesting in when you teach some topic?
Yes, very good question.
Morangi samjudi china zo ingyu sa di wangza siri cha de US wangza siri cha gwe jumzen khare sudi sambala ane nganzen nambe shong na no ala ani sengam gin siri chik sem dan de gin siri de zut nyamdo ane dretha nyu cha de US o di Chinese ane morala chiwa chi US chiwa de khare sudi sambala ane mi mangbu shibiji da khyorang ge songba na shin ji wangza siri le ing me ba yin ba ina ane lobtu dinde ni ya chu ing le ba soyala ane thalam khare khare pyoje tangu res. Yes.
So that question is a perfect transition to the next thing I wanted to say is if you already know something, what you already know, it's easier to make a connection.
Cheza dadi ani chivadi morangi dadi ten jema delma ani samjuro cheyagi ani takda dobji chadi gidus dadi zo khari chagi yore sidi sambala ani chorangi ngel khari shingi USA jorwa tene ani yanji khari shin res ya tuga dobji jorwa diso dobji res.
So if you are teaching something, you can make connections to things the students already understand. In your case, it might be your life experience, something you've done, something you've seen, or it might be your Buddhist studies. So if there's a way to make a connection between something that your students already know and do, and you can tack it onto it, then that's a really good strategy for getting them to engage with the material.
Cheza diladi sambala zo khare ladi sambala ta number zo dichade gi yores ani kyorangi luptu so gi nedunji khare mo da nedunji shingu yoba inas kan sheba te da kan sheba di ani chiglobzen khare chigi yoba dida pan dewa ta ya jorwa tuga ge jorwa an din ni zu du thedi sheba du thedi kan sheba du thedi pena nambe gi ta du jane sheba dine yong chogre ani mese gi nyamnyu dan dene ani yong chogre kanda di nanola ani lobzen di ma ani rewata jen tuga gyapche ani di cheba yimba ina ani phige lobchu liya ani lobzen di gi ing liya la ani kharse gore thalum namasunda di yabuji chade gi res.
So in my classes, I try to connect to a current affair, something that's happening right now, something that's in the news, something that everybody's thinking about. I try to connect that and then move it to the neuroscience or the details that I want the student to learn. But I try to use something that's already very familiar.
Cheza ani mora da ngaran da ucha shaba inas ngaran da ucha shaba yimba ina ani lobzen tibi kable ya thalamji khare phuje tangi yesudi sambala ani chig thade gen ne kable ya ani zu yimba ina re thade gi chig chabde shuk chabun ro de ge ni zu khare khare chungu yena o dinzu dan jene ani tene chig ani ni zu geshe goya du thede an di khan ya khanu so ro che che dine di jabjung di thole jabjung gu su de tribi so ro che che ani zu din de she jagu yes.
So sometimes you'll start with the basic ideas, the fundamentals, the details, and then scale it up to connect to things. That's one strategy is you start with, these are the basics. So if I'm learning a language, I can learn each character and then words and then sentences, and then I can get a big meaning out of it. That's one way, one strategy.
Cheza thalamchi kharcha degi yore sidi sambala an tangbo mige ne shirim di ngotwe che shirim gi eni pige la chi kharse go da ching deshe da ani duzu thedi sama du sine ngotwe che tene ya ani scale up da ya chi rimba do ju khomba do ya pye chin dine thuga shirim dine ya thuga ya ani khomba do rimba thosan do ji ya ani pye che ani chedan di thalam ya shu ji cha di go res pena cha shin nga zu ki jamba yimba ina ani ki yu di gi ani chi gi yisu yimba ina re tene si ne ani tene si du so da and
Another strategy is to start with the big picture, the big concept, the relevant event, and then go down into the details. So more like you start just looking at the big picture and then you zoom in until you can get down to the very small details.
제자 다양 탈람 셴바지 가르쳐 용거 그래서도 잠발로 당분이 아니 피게직 티원 마선노 고도 마선노 찹체사지니 총 고주제 안티네마 칼리마 띵 삽사마 두슨 조체네 아니 미게 아니 십타기니 수디 줄렌 체야드레스 페나 차샤나 넘버서 파르지레 테바 임바이나 아니 파르데 당부 찹체사지니 통구이나 티네 양수 코 찹체루 tandu 잠발라 아니 야 미게 네치기 아니 and 통제디 and sabru 누구요와 디손도 차되기요레스.
So if I really want my students to learn about a tree, I could start by telling them about the leaves and the roots and the branches and then put it all together.
페나차신의 겐라 코란기 아니 룹투 소리야 신동기 코도 위지를 룹젠지 TV 원다 담바이나 아니 모라 당봉고 칸에 주자리를 잠발라 당보 아니 지금 로마체 테네 동보체 테네 예가체 아니 신동 주당조와 딘데기 돈바 아니 고수니 로사레스.
Or I could start with a forest that has many trees, describe the forest, have them think about the forest, and then we could go in and see an individual tree, and then we can go in and learn about the leaves and all the details. So we can start really small and get bigger, or we can start really big and come down to the details. So I really want you to know about the tree, but I can start with the leaf, or I can start with the forest.
제자다 펜션도 직제 현재 셴바지 가르쳐 되기 어려서도 잠바데 아니 신동기 럽젠티다 찍디 모랑 간데치니 제가랑 간데치니 제투 요레라 바임바이나 아니 직 신나 똑부지기네 망고주제 신나 똑부디나노라 아니 신리나자 망부 시부주에 되바체 테네 야 신셔다지르 셔다바지르 주 미스카네 자체사징네 마팅 삽살 아니 로마다 테네 야가다 딘렉토로 만드데 차데기요레스 디인디 잠발라 텐다 닝부데 카레라나 아니 찹숑사징네 십타네 이게 야 찹체사지리 마티 야틴드레치다 아니 찹체사네 마팅 삽사지리 마 파윈야기 아니 럽생기 티당기 탈롬니디 차데기요
So both Sangpo and I are using our hands a lot. We're doing this, we're moving our hands. I am describing things and I'm talking about the forest and then I'm talking about the leaf. And then I see Sangpo doing the same thing. We're both doing that. Sometimes you can draw this.
제자다 딜레디 삼발라 아니 겐라 아니 모란다 가니니가 기탄다 만드시 제드 삼발라고 파쿠 딘데 체제 아니 드시 망부시비 제기 두아스 겐라 모랑 자와 너신징에 딘데 체디기 요 도즈데 통디기 두스 아니 디 살론 삼성 아주 카르체 유르시데 두즈데 리무나나 마쿠에체 디 롭젠 티고에조라 오 디나 체넨디기 요레스.
So in the last few minutes before you go for your tea break, I would like you to, if you have something to draw on, or if you're good at drawing on your computer, can you draw this idea of how we can teach about a concept? If I want to teach about a tree, do I start with the leaf or do I start with the forest? So just draw something any way that you can think of. I would like to see everyone have a different way to draw the different strategies of how you would teach. I'll show you my drawing when we get back from tea break, but you could start to think about that is how would you represent the different scales? So you start small and get large, or start large and get small. I would love for you to draw those and show me what strategies you would use.
아니 고도직 다직이 주시직 마티 빼는 차선의 신동도지 TV 원담바이나 안디 넘버 2 미겔 리몰마 코인디 참발라 아니 롭젠 티당기 탈람톤 빼는 차샤나 아니 니주 아니 충산의 체살이야 티에게 탈람디 임바이나레 아니 체산의 충설 탈람톤 마티기 임바이나레 아니 조 넘버 2기 림바디 칸데 치기 유메 아니 마 아니 리모칸 마 코에제 인디 체로치스 아니 넘버 2기 아니 체바나 신지 겐라 모랑게 치기 아니 겐라 모랑게 디기 단당가 조 파싱기 까마 카시 주사라와 디기 아니 추 냠도 제는 좀인데 참발라 아니 모랑기 카르티 유메디 넘버 2리 침비시에 여바직 수기인스.
Just a very simple drawing, doesn't have to have any words, very simple drawing. I want you to be thinking about that. And you can do that and then take a little time to do that. And then we'll take our tea break and then we'll start back at the right time.
Cheza dile de sambala the number so ani remudi tab de wuji ani dilia chik sig in de shed ne mangbu me ba chik an du sine nan de gi yores na dilia number so tuju khashi jille ani dine nga so je pasim page na din sare.
Do you have any questions before we do that?
Number so ani di maje gi ngwe ya mi se gi thiwan do din de ke yubes. Yes, one question from the group number 7.
Yes, please.
Nye tiwa di karsegure pena nganzo mik megyo chi yorwa mik megyo tang amjo mago ni yorwa dinzo la ani karsegure migi wangpo tang nai wangpo dinzo ki totang di kandesi yores ro.
Okay, his question is for example, like blind and deaf.
Yes.
So for them, how does actually the visual system and auditory system works? Neuroscience.
Okay. Very good question. There are so many ways to be blind and so many ways to be deaf that we can start to think about that. I have another question for him. So he wants to know how do their systems work? And I want to know why is he asking that question? I need more context. So is it a comparison? So I need more information about what the question is based on. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. Yes. Why, Gisela? Gisela, it was your Tiwa di Nchida ane Loa da Shawu, the Zutegi, ane Chida ane Wanzegi Dai Julam Rigtonda, Madamavuton and Deshe Jayores, Yimba Inayas, Kurangi Tiwa Tiguegi, and a Jabjun and a Shik Hawalachun Tiwa the Tangiores, Mora Karisin and Kurangi di and Nangchunium the Duriagi Chanes Tangiore, Yamana di Jabjun Karisin Tangiore, and di Moran Shindu do still a public Moran Jainser.
Nganzo chidang di nangbe shung nang la dinzo zoba yong gidwa mig longkyo dinzo la ni karsegure pena bomba zimbe mishe tang zug zimbe mishe dinzo kegi mare sa chidang thak chobo to mare ko zoba yore di insang ni tanda morang la tiwa shui ba.
Actually, the reason why he asked this question is some sort of comparing the argument or debate that we have in the Buddhist philosophy, such as how the blind actually have the perception of direct how the blind has the direct eye perception of perceiving a vase or the anything.
Yes.
And there is some sort of argumentative or debate on this specific concept. So because of that, he raised the question.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. And the reason I ask is because the way I answer the question will depend on what you really want to know. So having that additional information about what the context is helps me to choose what I answer.
Gyabjung Karin in the Tiwatango, Jumzen, the Karichinere, Lady Sambala, Kurangi, Ani Tiwatango, Gyabjung Shijusa di Ani Nangdun di Mandeshe Javin de Sambala, and Moralia, Ani Tiwadigi, Lane condition in Gyabu do say Jorwa, Dilia Tuvensu Yunguares.
And it actually raises a really important point about how to teach. So very often in neuroscience, we teach about the normal or the typical condition, but we use examples from when the system is broken. So if I want to know how something works, I can look at one that doesn't work, and then I can understand more about how it works.
That Dianchi Kareg Sambala Tua Dianchi Lopti Gitalam than David Tone, and Kene Chambu Shadigores. Then Namju in Bayana and Deshe Jam in the Sambala, any chick Juning in Edan Jigitone. Yamena Yanchuko Junde Maimba chick typical Janchik Shada Jigitone, dus Yunde Deshe Jagures. Tanganzu, and a Juning in Edan Jigitone, Penachashana, and a chick Mala Jig Tola Shomevache, and Junde in Bache. Tinde jig nala chawa chizu di hakowache. Tine ya yunde mayimbe di mala din jig tukyen rawu jig na ani kyun shosawe jela ya di khande jig lega chig duuse. An di ta yundi sambala ani nganzu pige la tadan thone ani jig pige la lob chig thone ani ya chig rimbad masuna kha ni rawu jig kan dusine le yungu yores.
So many of our examples in neuroscience will include things that have a broken system. The system doesn't work in the way that we expect, and then we learn so much from it. That blindness and deafness have taught us a lot about the way the central nervous system works, because when something doesn't work, we can look at what is missing, what has changed, and then we can understand how it works when everything is together.
Ta pena chashina once tsendi gi nizu mangbu shibiji khanin jangsha yore sidi zambala ane chig mala jiglia ane kyuncha chungmi tinde gi nedun le shichune ane ngazu nizu mangbu ji jangi yores khari chene re sidi zambala ane kyuncha chung sabe jelia ane ngazu khari ta thugu yore la bayin bayina ane zu ding nano ala kyuncha chung goya gi chajen khari sangum mindu se ngazu pha shimju shipsar che yor was di indu ngazu ane chig lowa da shawe gi neda ga thone e an chig wanzi tseri gi nizu mangbu shibiji chu ane karzo shido yunala ane shamde chembu du yores.
So as a science teacher, you are training to be a science teacher. You can start to think about what your goals would be for your students. And it appears that you are interested in being able to support or refute your argument in the Buddhist studies about blindness and deafness. And if you can use the neuroscience content to help you achieve that goal, then you are a successful teacher.
Cheza da dil lebdi sambala pena chashana ani churangi ani lobjulia lobzin tibi kabli yas ta pena chashana ani nambe gi tadu na no la tanda ani tanda choba jorwa choba didan jene ani chigi shawuda lume gi tongzo didan jene ani churangi wangza seri gi jabjung gi nizu ki yongche an dile an deshe gyan ani phajo dile ya chig ngeshi ke wa dobu soto wa yimba ina ani churangi lobchen tia di an pige ne la kheba jida thondo le mimba ji ani cha yores.
Yes. So as we are now at tea break, I do want you to still do that drawing to show the scale. So do you start small and get big, or do you start big and then zoom in? I want that drawing from everyone, and you'll describe it when we come back from break.
Cheza da number 2 ani tanda soja pasine le yong do sine choran so remudi mintune do sine tiro chis tigu yes ani zo di ani number 2 ani nizu chap chungsa jine shize gi ani pige nizu jine ya chap chesa ya dodan di imba ya mena chap chesa jine ma ani ting sapsal man zuya da ne de khari cha de gi me di ani number 2 same tigu yes di soja pasin chu lo yundi sambala ani number 2 di ani nyamju chegu yes.